once again, listeners, and welcome to In the Library with
Tara!
And I'm Adrian. And today we have with us our special guest,
Keith Julius.
And Miss... I'm turning down the wrong ones. Perfect. I know what I'm doing.
Good start, right?
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. It's okay. I edit this mostly. Sometimes.
Mostly.
So, Mr. Julius, what is it you do?
Well, right now I'm retired, so I do whatever I want.
Well, that's nice.
But I've always wanted to be an author. I started reading at a very early age. The classic Mark Twain, Jules Verne, things like that. And I was just captivated with the words. I discovered at an early age character called Doc Savage, was a sort of superhero. Predecessor to Superman and some of those characters. And I just, loved reading all the time, and I got to the point where I felt, well, gee, I could do this. So I've tried quite unsuccessfully for 50 years to get something published, but it's a hard field to get into.
Well, you have quite a few books. How many novels have you written?
Written or published? Yeah, I don't have. I have 5 that are currently available on Amazon. They've all been self-published. I actually wrote my first novel back in 1972 when I was in 10th grade. It was a detective story because I remember I had my 10th grade teacher read it and give me feedback on it. Unfortunately, I don't have any copies of it, but I definitely remember doing that. And I struggled for years trying to approach conventional publishers and trying to get something published. I never got anywhere. So finally, in 10 years ago, I decided to just publish on my own. So I currently have 5 available that I've self-published.
That is becoming a more common option for authors. It seems like a lot of people have been self-publishing lately, and definitely start off. Yeah.
There used to always be a stigma against it, called it vanity press and that type of thing. Well, anybody can afford it. And it's kind of nice because anybody can, publish something, but it's kind of awful because anybody can publish something, and there's a lot of junk out there.
Yeah. But I personally believe that there is something out there for everyone. It's like why we have so many different genres and why everyone has their own stuff. So
exactly.
I personally like that everyone can self-publish because there's somebody out there who
that is true. But I've read some self-published works that are horribly, lots of grammatical errors and misspellings and just really poor.
Adrian too, huh?
What?
He does what's that contest you did? He basically read a bunch of novels and short stories, and he helped judge them.
Oh,
something you may want to consider since you're a self-published author. There is the annual Indie Author Project competition, for which I am a judge.
Oh,
every year or just last year?
I'm returning this year as well.
Cool.
Now, is this a local thing or a national thing? What is it?
This is national. It is national, but independent authors are encouraged to submit their books usually by the end of April each year, and then a panel of judges, which is comprised of librarians from around the country, read them, review them, and then awards are given out in different genres.
I've kind of stayed away from that sort of thing. Self-publishing, in some respects, isn't very expensive. I mean, I do mine through Kindle, through KDP, through Amazon. And they set up where you can do a lot of it yourself. You can edit it, you can format it, you can do a lot. Or you can pay them to do everything. You can pay them to edit it, pay them to design covers. So, I have a very small budget for this. I did submit some books for some contests in the past, but usually there's a fee and usually there's a cost of sending them in, and it just got to the point where I wondered, is it really worth it? You have that carrot at the end of the stick that, maybe I'll get somewhere, but there's also the reality that you might not.
Yeah. Well, what I like about your books, you have a whole series that are about C.A.S.A workers.
Correct.
And I've had some family members who've worked as C.A.S.A workers before, so it's a topic that I'm glad is out there and people can read about. You worked as a C.A.S.A worker yourself, correct?
Correct. Yes.
How long did you do that for?
I discovered C.A.S.A probably about 12 years ago. I came from a big family. Like I said, there are 8 kids in my family. There were always nieces and nephews around. I've always been around kids, and I've always enjoyed that. I have 2 boys of my own, but they're both in their 40s now. So, once they grew up and moved out of the house, there weren't kids around anymore.
Yeah.
And I actually just got online and looked for opportunities to volunteer to help kids, and I discovered C.A.S.A, which I'd never heard of before. For those that don't know, it's a court-appointed special advocates that represent children in cases of child abuse and child neglect. And it's really important work that they do, because there's a lot of kids hurting out there. Mm-hmm. And it's nice that they have somebody on their side looking out for them. And actually, at that point, about the same time I discovered that, I had self-published my first book, which was Remorse by Degree, which is a suspense thriller, which I'm happy with, but it's sort of a typical suspense thriller. Mm-hmm. But once I discovered C.A.S.A, it sort of opened my eyes up to a world that I wasn't aware of before.
Yeah, and it's nice because not a lot of people know what the C.A.S.A program is. How could somebody who's listening who might be interested, how would they go about becoming a C.A.S.A worker or looking into it?
I think there's only one state in the country that doesn't have C.A.S.A programs, and like in Ohio, most of the counties in Ohio have C.A.S.A. Monroe County has a C.A.S.A. So it's all over. So, you should be able to get online and find your local C.A.S.A program and contact them. There is training involved, because they want you obviously know what you're doing. Yeah. When you first take a case, it can be a lot of work, because you actually interview children, you interview family members. You do a pretty thorough background check on what's going on, so you as a C.A.S.A understand the situation. Mm-hmm. And then you're required to attend any court proceedings, and over the course of the case. And the cases usually last about a year and a half, 2 years. So it's a big commitment. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's very important for the children that there's people out there that do that.
Have you stayed in contact with any of the kids that you worked with before? I'm sure that'd be pretty difficult.
It's pretty difficult. Part of the thing is when the C.A.S.A gets involved, the children are going through a traumatic point in their life. Yeah. And the theory behind the program is, once the case is over, you back off and you let the child get on with their life. Mm-hmm. So the time I worked in C.A.S.A, I worked in about a dozen different cases. And there was one family I worked with that occasionally still sends me pictures of their child, which is really nice to see, because I first met this child when she was like 2 weeks old in the hospital. She was in very bad shape, and now she's a 12-year-old and she's doing great. So it's nice to see that. Yeah. But most of the kids, once I'm done with them, I never hear from them again.
What's been the hardest part about working in that line?
You do get attached to the kids. You do really get attached to these children, and it's hard to leave them. But for the most part, you feel like you're leaving them in a better place. There's some cases that don't go the way you'd like them to be, or some cases, I've had some cases where it just wasn't a good resolution to the case. Mm-hmm. You hope for the best. What happened was maybe not perfect, but it was the best that you could hope for the child.
Yeah. Well, so you do have a series that's about C.A.S.A workers, and I was curious, are any of the characters or storylines based off of real people or cases you worked on?
Absolutely not. No, okay. I definitely do not want to go that route. Usually they're inspired by something I've run across in my C.A.S.A case. My first C.A.S.A book was Catch a Falling Star, mm-hmm. Which revolves around a young mother that's has a drug addict, and she has her children taken away from her. And that is, so many of the cases we run across involve drugs. So it's just something that is prevalent in so many cases that I just felt, something should be done about this. Something should be written about this. And I try to approach these people. I mean, it's easy to say, well, these people are losers, or just, deadbeats, or, they're on drugs. What's wrong with them? Well, that's not the case. These people are going through hard times in their life. Yeah. And it's actually surprising, some of the statistics you learn when you start looking into it. Statistically speaking, once every 5 hours, someone in Ohio will die from a drug overdose.
Wow.
That's a pretty amazing statistic.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people out there that need help, and their children are suffering because of it. Mm-hmm. So like I said, just the whole idea of the drug problem inspired me to write the first one. Yeah. My second book, Remorse, Born for Adversity, revolves around mental illness. Through the C.A.S.A program, you take ongoing training to learn different things. I took some training about some mental health issues that people have, and it just, well, what if this happened? What if that happened? And that's one of the things I enjoy about writing, is manipulating the people in the books, mm-hmm. Trying to determine, well, if this happened, what's going to happen next, and what are the results of this happening? And it just occurred to me, well, if somebody had this particular mental illness, what problems could arise in the family because of it? Yeah. And so, like I said, the books are inspired by things I've either done in training or seen in my cases, but there are no actual people in it. there's nobody in any of my books I think that anybody could ever look at and say, yeah, that's me. At least I hope not.
Yeah, probably for the best.
Yeah.
When people read your books, what do you hope they take away from them?
I hope they take an awareness of how tough life is for some people and some of the problems that are out there. I mean, I grew up I guess I sort of grew up maybe not under the best of circumstances. I had a loving family, a lot of kids around, but we really didn't have much. It's a joke I like to tell. When I first started going with my wife, I went to her house for dinner one night. They had hamburgers and corn on the cob. And I thought, well, this is 2 meals, and we would have hamburgers or we would have corn on the cob. We wouldn't have both. It just seemed extravagant, because we had a big family. My parents were just getting by, but we had a lot of love and no other issues. Mm-hmm. Well, there's some families out there that are really struggling with a lot, more than I ever realized growing up and more than I ever realized until I got involved with the C.A.S.A program. And I guess I would like people to be more aware that there's people out there that need help.
Yeah. Especially in our area, it's really easy to put ourselves in a bubble and to think that this really doesn't affect our area and the people we know. And but yeah, we have a lot of need in our area, and a lot of people who could use a C.A.S.A worker, someone to step up and help out.
And not to offend any of our listeners, I mean, I would never abuse a dog or a cat or an animal, Mm-hmm. But you see so many people that spend a fortune on rescue dogs and rescue animals and stuff, and that's great that they're doing that. But there's children out there that need help. They say that 1 out of every 5 children in America goes to bed hungry. Mm. That shouldn't happen. Not in a country like ours. There are agencies out there that work with them. There's help, but if somebody can get in the C.A.S.A program and help a child through some traumatic times, that would be great.
Yeah, and if anyone out there knows anyone who is dealing with something like that, there's a lot of different programs in our area that can help families. So we try to highlight them as often as we can, the different programs and organizations that are in Monroe County. Quick Google search will show you, but you can also reach out to the Bedford Library, any of the Monroe County libraries, if you have any questions about the programs that our community offers.
C.A.S.A is Spanish for house.
Yes.
Do you speak Spanish?
No, I do not. Sometimes I think I should learn that. I did take Spanish back in high school, but that was 50 years ago. And I remember a few things. I can count to 20, I think, but that's about it.
Well, if you go to Canopy, if you have a library card, Canopy is a streaming site that has an adult section and a kids section. And the kids section actually has some really fun language-based shows.
Oh, okay.
A little while ago, they had Muzzy. I think it's still on there. But yeah, so you can learn, have fun, be like a kid too.
I mean, if we're going to link back to other things here,
Mango.
Don't forget we have Mango languages too, so you can learn Spanish through Mango. Although mangoes aren't Spanish. I think
they're in the Caribbean. They speak Spanish in the Caribbean. So
yeah, sure. I don't know where mangoes originate from.
I don't know where they originate from, but I know they have them down there.
So I was curious. You have 5 books that are published.
Yes.
Which one is your favorite? Or what was your favorite to write, maybe?
Catch a Falling Star was the first C.A.S.A one. So it still kind of holds a place in my heart because I felt it was something new and different for me. My newest self-published book was A Decade of Mourning, which I'm very happy with. It it begins with a 13-year-old girl I take that back, 17-year-old girl on the high-level bridge in Toledo, and she's about to jump off. Mm. And they stop her at the last minute, and she's having some mental issues and some problems to even consider suicide. And the whole book is an exploration of her past. You find out that she was adopted 10 years previously, and there's issues from her childhood that never been believed. And I'd like to think the ending is sort of a surprise. It's more of a surprise ending than I usually have in my stories. And I think there's some good twists in it, so I like that. The Robber of Youth was my third C.A.S.A book, and that was the hardest one to write. It's hard to even imagine, but especially this area, Toledo area, is a big hub for human trafficking.
Yes, it is.
And when I first heard about it, I mean, I can't imagine that going on. And in my books, I try to put myself into the people, and try to, well, why would they do this, or what type of person would do this type of thing? And I just can't imagine what type of person would be a human trafficker. The book centers around a young girl that is pulled into human trafficking and the things she's going through. And it was a very difficult book to write because I didn't want it to be pornography, but I wanted it to be realistic, because it's a real situation that is going on out there. And it's once again, it's scary when you look at some of the statistics. They say that the average age of entry into prostitution ranges from 12 to 14 years of age. It says children as young as 8 have been drawn into it. It's sad situation that those things go on. And as far as, that's another thing, people need to be aware of these things. Nothing's going to change if people don't know about it.
Yeah. And especially in our area, because a lot of people don't realize how big of an issue it is in the Toledo area. Yeah. Do you have any new books on the horizon? I
actually have a book I finished about a year ago. I decided to try to send it out to agents and see if I could get somewhere with it. And I queried just over 100 agents on it. And so far, all I've got is rejections. It's basically ready to be published if I push a button, but I'm still holding out, hoping that maybe I can go more of the conventional publishing. I mean, there's a certain amount of self-satisfaction in self-publishing, but I always thought the writing was the hard part of it. Well, now I'm realizing the selling is the hard part of it. I mean, trying to get my book out there. There's so many books out there. There's so much competition. To get people aware of my books is a really hard thing to do.
But you were at the Monroe County Writers on the River last year.
I've done that a couple of years.
And I think I saw online that you were at a couple different events in Toledo as well, right?
I have done a few events, and generally I sell a couple copies and then hopefully pick up a few new readers. I have picked up a couple of readers that have, after meeting me and talking with me, they've bought my entire set of books, so that's always nice to see something like that. It's a very satisfying feeling, especially if a total stranger comes up and knows nothing about you, but from talking to you and looking at your material, they're willing to, make that commitment and buy your books is a very satisfying feeling. As much as I enjoyed writing the books, there's an immense pleasure to know that people are out there reading them.
Yeah. And how would somebody go about purchasing one of your books? Was Amazon the best option?
Amazon would be the best option. There's available as paperbacks and as Kindle. I have a website that's just keithjulius.com, and I have links on the website that take people right to the Amazon, for the Kindle or the purchases. You can get them through Barnes & Noble online, too, as well.
Oh, neat.
They're not in the stores, but they are on the online site.
And you can also pick them up at the library, because we have, I think, all of your books in the system. If we're missing any, it's one. Because I did look it up, and I had lots of options to pick from, and I was very excited.
I know the Toledo Library has them, too. All my books take place in Toledo. Several of them mention temperance and have scenes that take place in temperance. But, I'm not originally from Toledo. I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania, but I moved here 40-some years ago, so I consider myself local. And I think it just puts a local slant on the books that people might enjoy as well.
Yeah. Now, not that we're biased, but the Temperance Bedford Branch Library is better than the Toledo Library, right?
Obviously.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure, but I am ready to hit the mute. No, I'm kidding.
The delete button, right?
And so as a self-published author, what advice do you have for any brand new authors out there who are looking to publish one of their books or get started in writing?
I think you really have to be honest with yourself when you write. Over the years, I've been in various different writers groups, and you go and people read some of their writing, and generally you critique one another. And so many people, you always want to be positive. Anybody that writes something down, it's a great thing that they're even trying it. But you have to be realistic. There's a lot of competition there, and if you can't honestly look at yourself and do the absolute best job that you can writing, then you're not going to get anywhere. Unless you know somebody.
Is there anything you would like to share with our listeners that we haven't addressed?
I don't think so. My books are adult-oriented, some more so than others. Like Catch a Falling Star, the first one. I would say if it was a movie, it would maybe be PG-13. And the second book, Born for Adversity, I would say it was PG. Robber of Youth is definitely R-rated. It's definitely some sex scenes, some language, but I don't do it to shock, and I don't do it to glamorize it. I do it to try to make an accurate representation of what it's like for these people. So I think people should be aware. The C.A.S.A program is for children, but But these children, some of them hear a lot of nasty things and see a lot of nasty things around their house. And so the books are true to that, true to that nature.
That's nice because it seems like each book is about something else. So if someone like has a focus or something that they'd prefer not to read, it doesn't mean you can't read the series. You can just pick the ones that you want.
Exactly. And it's interesting too, there's no one character that's in all the books, but there's characters that show up in multiple books. All 5 of my books have characters that appear in more than one book, so they're all Toledo related, they're all interconnected, like one little world. But like I said, you can pick up any one of them and read them and not feel like you're missing something.
Nice. I love that.
Thank you.
All right, we have hit our time. We have to quickly shift gears. We have to talk about what's going on at your local library.
Here's a Toddler Tales and Tunes, Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m. starting June 17th. You want to read the whole description of it?
As much or as little as you want.
Oh, this sounds like fun. Joining our fun-filled story time. Each session features engaged read-alouds, lively songs, playful dancing, and age-appropriate activities. Now, what age level do you shoot for on these?
This one doesn't say this. So it's Toddler Tales. So toddlers should be around like 1.5 to 5, would you think?
Am I too old?
Yeah.
Mentally or
Mentally.
physically?
Oh.
Yeah, because I have a 3-year-old nephew that would probably enjoy that.
Oh, yeah, perfect age for that. Yeah. Coming back up at the Bedford branch, Yogi Bears is going to start back up in July.
Yeah, what happened to that?
It took a month off. And it was June. There was a lot of stuff happening. I just needed a break, okay? Twice a month. On the first and third Sunday of the month, you can join me at the Bedford Branch Library. There are 2 different times to choose from. One's at 1:30 p.m., the other one's at 2 p.m. It's for ages 5 to 11. And during our Yogi Bears, we're going to do breathing poses, music, relaxation, and more. So you will get to practice fine motor skills, social and group skills, and begin to learn calming tools and mindfulness. So join me the first and third Sunday of the month.
Friends of the Bedford Library are pleased to present Book Drop-Off, occurring Saturday, June 28th, 2025, from 1 to 4 p.m. Bring your gently used books, CDs, DVDs, and puzzles. This event helps to support your Bedford Library. Follow the signs to the south parking lot. Again, that's Saturday, June 28th, 2025.
Bum, bum, bum.
Well, this looks like one that Adrian could participate in for kids ages 7 and up.
Oh, there you
There we go.
I'm up.
Okay, you're up. You're up. Okay. It's Painted Pages, Thursdays at 1 p.m., running June 26th through July 24th. Enjoy story-based art from paintings to collages and more.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Does sound fun.
At the Ida Branch Library, there is an ongoing class called Chair Yoga. This is on Mondays at 10:30 a.m. and or Fridays at 11:30 a.m. So get out, stretch your way to feeling better mentally and physically. Chair yoga is a low-impact way to fitness, and everyone can participate regardless of physical or health limitations. Come on out to the Ida Branch Library.
This is an audio-only podcast and no one can see it, but I am performing chair pose.
Ha, ha, ha. You look like a robot.
Well, you gotta have the armrests. I mean, I guess you could be a budget
I'm waiting
chair.
for you just to move and break it down. Yeah.
All right. Save the date for Bedford Flower and Garden Club's annual garden tour, coming Saturday, July 12th, 2025, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Starting at the Bedford Branch Library at 8575 Jackman Road in Temperance. There will be food trucks, raffles, vendors, a backyard boutique, and a book sale. Tickets are $10 at the door. Again, that's Saturday, July 12th, 2025.
Ongoing event at the Bedford Branch Library. You know her, you love her. It's Monarch Mondays with Michelle. Join us on Monday mornings from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for a new Monarch way station. Michelle has worked very hard to... Why are you laughing at me? Michelle has worked really hard to get a Monarch way station out front of the library, and she has plenty of Monarch caterpillars that you can check out. There's butterflies that are hatching. There's even hummingbirds out there. So you can come check out the plants, watch the pollinators in action, or just take time to smell the flowers. She will have a short educational preschool program beginning at 11 a.m. every Monday.
I don't know if I'm going to leave this in or cut it. As soon as you said her name, I wanted to cut in with, I hear a rumor she has most of her teeth.
You should have, but nobody would have got it.
Nobody would have got it. Nobody will get it if I leave it in.
All the more fun.
We could plug a website, right?
Though everybody's going to ask Michelle what it means when they see
That's
her
right.
now.
Everybody
See
is
how
gonna
many people are listening to your podcast.
So, on that same note, just since we are talking about Michelle Alvarez and most of her teeth, consider checking out thegangstagarden.com.
Oh, is that her blog?
That's her blog.
Yeah.
She's still in the nascent stages of it, but maybe this will be the little push to get her going.
Yeah.
Just to explain the backstory, she asked me to create the website for her, and I set it up. And
Don't tell them make them go to her.
but that's fine. That'll work.
Tell them you heard about it on the podcast.
Ask her how many teeth she has.
How many teeth do you have? In my head or in the jar under my bed?
Yeah, that's not
Ooh,
creepy.
that's
The best part is, let's not tell her either, and let's see if she listens to the podcast, because she'll comment if she hears it.
That's true.
Putting her on the spot.
Well, we would certainly like to thank you for listening. Do be sure to check out the C.A.S.A programs in your area, and be sure to check out the books either through Amazon or through your local library, written by Mr. Keith Julius. And this has been In the Library with
Tara!
I Remain Adrian, and our special guest,
Keith.
And because I totally forgot, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that ring bell for notifications, and if you're on Spotify,
Follow us and like the individual podcasts to help us with the algorithm. Please and thank you.